I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter podcast. I have a guest that I have looked up to for a long time. Excited that he's on the podcast to share. Brian Fink, extraordinary recruiter, extraordinary sourcer, and also has just written the book Talk Tech to Me to help explain the technology world of recruiting to experienced recruiters and brand new recruiters. And here's the thing that I love about this book. When I first started out off in recruiting, and Brian's probably the same way, we just kind of had to figure it out. There wasn't like that many tools. Like if you want to read about like a computer, like learn about a software development, you actually picked up a Java book or something of that nature. Brian has like done a good job like condensing all that information into a easy to read book. So that way newer recruiters don't have to deal with the same struggles that we did. So Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you on the podcast. Benjamin, as you know, this is one of those things, like I DM you at like 6:30 in the morning when I'm like, where's my podcast? I'm going on a run. I need my fuel. What's going on? I'm excited to be a part of the program. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, before we get started, I just also want to say thank you for all the years of giving back to the entire recruiting community that you've done.
Well, I'm happy to do it. I think it comes from a place that when I first got into recruiting, that there were a lot of walls and a lot of silos, and I didn't exactly understand that. Um, as I kind of closed my first like big $100,000 multi-layered deal with a client, I found out that teaching their recruiters to be better recruiters endeared me to them and to the hiring managers. And it laid up more opportunities for me to work on either that exec search or to work on multiple smaller opportunities and really have a presence in their organization as a trusted talent partner, which ultimately everybody says they want to be, but like, are they really putting in the work or the value to make that happen?
Well, before we start doing a deep dive on the book, being that valued partner, how did you even end up in this world of recruiting?
Okay, so there are two roads that I took, and I'll make it real simple. Is that somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Brian, you're going to be the rush chairman for our fraternity." Um, I, I knew that we had a small pledge class my year, and my goal was to substantially double that pledge class the next year. I did that, and then I just kept going for like multiples on driving that. So being Rush chairman, damn glad to meet you, was kind of my training ground on that. But the way that I got into uh, agency recruiting is there was a young lady, her name is Tandy Good. She's at Google. Tandy was at Pfizer. She tried to recruit me to be a pharmaceutical sales rep. And I was really interested in the mechanics of how the deal was done, like the double-sided deal between the hiring manager and the candidate. And then Jeff Audette gave me the opportunity to go into an agency to do that, to find great sales professionals. So that's the quick one too.
Well, that's awesome. That's like, being in the fraternity would really prep you for this wonderful world that we're both in.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have no idea what's going to happen. It's going to come out of anybody's mouth. And you're like, okay, I identify with that. And I'm going to find you somebody who also identifies with that so that you feel at home and at ease.
Awesome. Well, and so looking at your background, you've done executive search, you've done the agency side, but you've kind of shifted more towards the sourcing side of the house.
Yeah. Back in, I guess it was with ZocDoc so I had ZocDoc as a client, and they were looking, so I had ZocDoc as a client, and then I went from having them as a client to going to rebuild an agency, and then was in New York, and they were like, "Oh, hey, you should come hang out and see what we're doing." And then they were like, "We need somebody to bump up sales sourcing." And I was like, "You're doing the technical thing now. What do you need done?" And so, partnered with Corey Ishihara there to really up level, from a training perspective, but also from a candidate generation standpoint. But we had a different understanding of what sourcing is, and it's carried me through and made me successful to this day. I have an argument with sourcers. I am not a list builder. I will build a list, but I'm going to get on the phone and qualify those candidates, make sure they're interested, educated, and qualified for the opportunity before I turn the name over to you. Okay. So that makes my sourcing a little bit different. I was able to find a brother from another mother in Steve Rath, who was doing the same thing at Apple. And Steve took me to Apple to be a sourcer there. Had a great run, had a lot of fun building with the Apple media products. If you use iTunes or use a podcast app like this one, then you're probably familiar with the technology that we were responsible for building. From there, I just kind of started riffing on doing the frontline finding of the individual. I found it very similar to what I'd done in agency land. Um, yeah, just like passing over the individual once I made sure that they were the right individual and passing them directly to the hiring manager as opposed to giving a list to somebody else for them to call through.
So, like, I've done a lot of client support over the years, and I've done like a lot of the sourcing side too. And well, it's clear that I'm glad that you brought this up because, like, when I picture the sourcing work that I've done for clients, I have my list, which I'm happy to show them, but I'm really giving them the clients that are actual the candidates that are qualified and have expressed interest in the opportunity.
But rest interest in the opportunity. So this is an argument I get with people and into people is if you reach out to Benjamin, you say, "Hey Benjamin, I've got an opportunity at X." Well, I can't say
Yeah.
X anymore because I used to work there. All right. So if you have an opportunity to work at McAfee, are you interested? And they say yes. That isn't a conversation, right? That's like qualification over email. Like, what are you supposed to do? Am I supposed to send you a survey and ask you, can you tell me how much Python you have? Can you tell me how much salt or state and local accounting experience you have? Like, it's not just finding people who have raised their hand that say, "Oh, I'm interested in having a
Mhm.
conversation." It's about genuinely finding those people who are qualified, that are doing the heavy lifting, that are doing the hard work and understanding the problem at the core that they like to solve.
Yeah.
I don't
And
think you can do
like,
that over email.
and you can't do that over email, but also it's a thing like I think that where has impact like it's something that's impacted a lot of like the sourcers in the recruiting community is, you know, I've seen some of them that they just build out a list and then they're done. And yeah, like that's super important. Crazy thing is technology is starting to do that too. But you have to like, to keep on adding value and to evolve. Like you have to dig a little deeper than just building the list and handing it over.
Yes. And what I think though is that I think that it's cool, though, that people value sourcing because it is generating passive candidates, not generating those active individuals, finding those people who, LinkedIn puts out a statistic that like 85% of people on LinkedIn are open to talking about a new opportunity. Well, great. If that's true, right? Then that means you send out 100 emails and 85 people are going to come. They're going to say, "I'm interested." You turn those 85 people over to a recruiter and you say, "I'm done. You go deal with that shit."
Well, I think the problem where LinkedIn gets that stat wrong is yes, there's 85% of people that would be interested. I mean, what is the opportunity? Is it like $1 million salary? Like, cool. 85% of the people would answer that rather than,
Absolutely.
oh, I love LinkedIn statistics.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. But to that, right? Like you say 85% of people would be interested to $1 million a year salary, right? How do we
Yeah.
know? It goes back to that. How do we know that you're qualified? Right? Like, one of the things that I can actively tell you, and people see this on my LinkedIn, I am recruiting for a lot of AI roles right now, right? Everybody seems to know everything about LLMs according to their LinkedIn profile. But if I don't dig deeper, and this is the importance of having a researcher or sourcer that does the deep due diligence. If I don't go to scholar.google.com and look through their papers and figure out who actually was doing this 4 years ago in their PhD program, then I'm left with a list that's really bunk, that's not qualified.
And before we start talking about some of your sourcing secrets, I want to, we're going to go there. I want to go back to the book. You wrote this
Okay.
book.
All right.
Why did you write this book?
I wrote the book for two reasons. One is kind of, I didn't have a guide when I was a junior recruiter. Like, what the best thing that I had was Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Red Book of Sales, right? And I don't think that there existed the right tool to teach a junior recruiter, or what I like to say is a better recruiter, how to be the best recruiter, right? So the book includes not only like, here are the hints and tricks and tips that you need to understand the technical realm. Here's what it means to be a good talent partner. So like you get into chapter 7 of the book, and chapter 7 and chapter 8 really talk about what's the importance of diversity and how that creates friction in your organization, how friction produces fire, how fire produces results. So, and also I'm noticing when I teach junior recruiters that like they are pulling out their smartphones and they are taking lots of pictures of when I do Boolean search. I don't understand why that is happening. So like I dedicated a full chapter to Boolean search in the book. I dedicated a chapter to software development lifecycle. And then the rest of it is like 80, 70, 60% of it is this is how this technology works. Here's an analogy. This is like what it would be like if you went to a party. And this is what you can say, not to appear to be really smart, but for you to have that competency and that confidence to deliver and ask that question. So that's part one. Part two, I talk about the latter half of the book is that I really wanted to make an impact in different skill sets, right? Um, I look at my daughter, and if she's listening to this in 20 years, then I have not done my job as a parent to deter her from getting into recruiting. But the thing is, Benjamin, is that there's such a low threshold to getting into recruiting. Is that for me to joke that a 7-year-old could be 27 and say, I want to be a recruiter. I want them to pick up the book and for them to do it well and to treat their candidates with respect. So that's what I got.
So, and when it comes to like the threshold, like there is such a low threshold of recruiting, and like there, so many of us just kind of like happenstance, we run into this industry. And outside, I hate to say this, outside my, I think my initial week of training as an agency recruiter, or maybe 2 weeks of training as an agency recruiter, like everything else is learning on your own.
Exactly. So why not provide a book that you can go through and you can bookmark and you can figure things out? I mean, Benjamin, I'm not sure about you, but I get 7 emails or in-mails a day telling me that I would be a great software developer. Like I'm happy to show them to you, right? But the fact of the matter is that people are doing keyword matching. They're not actually even reading the profile. They're living up to some standard that doesn't make sense, that you have to send 200 in-mails a week to be successful at this role. They've got their metrics all out of whack. What's going on? Like, where's
It's,
the ROI?
it, the metrics, it's going back to those original 1980s standards of if you do enough volume, something positive is going to happen. But the problem is also with technology and automation and artificial intelligence, like you can target less, make it more personalized for a bigger impact. But I think there's some managers out there that are like, you have to hit these numbers, you have to hit these numbers. And that's why I get the, hey, you're qualified to be a security guard at the NSA. And I'm like, it's because I say full scope poly somewhere in my LinkedIn profile.
Somewhere in your LinkedIn profile, right?
So it's just, I, I I am glad that you wrote this book because there is just, unlike the HR path where they have like SHRM and all those updated things that you have, laws that you have to keep track of, there's nothing else, unless you pay for your own to go to conferences, pay for your own to go to like events like RecFest or SourceCon or some of the TA stuff. There's no education out there.
Well, you talk about the events, right? Is that they're the great thing about, and you talk about the community. The great thing about the community is the community polices the community to make sure that the content is up here and that you're actually climbing a mountain to get really great content as opposed to stepping over the limbo stick to become a recruiter.
Actually, well, here's a question for you, just like out of my curiosity, like there's what, 500,000 recruiters in the United States.
Yeah. According to LinkedIn.com.
Okay, according to LinkedIn.com, another LinkedIn
Mm.
stat. How many of those recruiters, or what's the percentage of recruiters that you think are actively out there chasing education and working on to try to become better recruiters?
Um, well, I know that today that I've sold 3,700 copies of the book. So I know that 3,700 of 5,000 of 500,000 are interested in being better technical recruiters, right? That's a pretty upsetting number. It's a pretty upsetting number when you have an event like RecFest, which is going to probably have over 1,000 recruiters at this event. I say upsetting. 1,000 recruiters, that's a huge amount of people. Benjamin, that's not half a percentage of what we just gave, right? That there are 500,000 recruiters that are that there's less than 5% of them. I mean, less than half a percentage of them that are excited about going to an event where they're going to network and learn from some of the most brilliant minds like Torrin Ellis or Michael Goldberg or Steve Levy, that they're going to have great conversations. They're going to get to interact with them, that they're not going, that they're not ponying up $200 to make it happen. That was not a commercial for RecFest. That was just like, dude, what, I don't get it either.
I'll say this. I remember like my first real recruiting event. I went to a SourceCon many years ago, and I was a contract recruiter. So, time not working is time not paid. Had to take time off, had paid for my own tickets, paid for my own flights, paid for my own hotels. But getting around the community myself, and learning some of the stuff that I learned has had such a great ROI on my career.
Oh, it's a force multiplier. I mean, like you talk about SourceCon, great event, very strategic minds that are there. Talent 42, another great event. Like I kind of put those two as bookends. I know they're on the same ERE shelf, but like if you can go to them and you can invest the time, the money, the work ethic, the connections that you're going to make, you're going to come away with a big win.
So, well, want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about we've been doing a great job talking about the recruiting community. We've been doing a great job talking about, up leveling yourself, learning and getting around the rest of the recruiting community. But 2023 has been a brutal year for
Dude,
recruiters.
brutal year. And, you know, yeah, uh, I got to,
I'm I don't want to say it's worse than 2020, but it's more unexpected than 2020.
so I think that there are a lot of different things that are going on here is I think that people have some unrealistic expectations about what the market is supposed to bear for them. I have conversations with, uh, on Friday afternoon from 3 until 6 p.m. It used to be 3 to 5, but I had to open it up is I spend 15 to 30 minutes with recruiters talking about recruiting. It used to be like Brian's office hours. Like I would show you what to do and how to do it. And we'd work on a search together. But now it's become more of I can't find a job. There's nobody hiring. I used to work at this FANG company and nobody wants me. What's going on? And it is really weird. It is very upside down. So I agree with that observation.
So it's, you know, and pause right there before we go talking about the recruiting community. Every Friday afternoon, you open up your calendar for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll shoot you over the Calendly link and you can make it happen.
One, I think that's incredible. Two, how has that impacted everything that you're doing in the recruiting space?
Um, so how's it impacted everything? Uh, Friday nights, are a little morose because there's some people that I talk to that they need to talk to somebody and they also are a month away from running out of money, right? Like, so it's pretty deep, right? Number two, I find myself that I'm working on helping recruiters build their resumes. Shout out to any recruiters listening to this. Numbers, use numbers on your resume, right? Like talk about the value that you provided to the business. Don't talk about things in generalizations like hired a lot of data science engineers, right? Like say, I was one of 7 recruiters that were responsible for delivering this value to the business and cite what the dollar amount is. I'm learning that there are a lot of recruiters who aren't doing that. Number two, I'm learning that there are a lot of recruiters, and I don't understand this, Benjamin, like why corporate recruiters are afraid to go back to agency, right? Like agency land, we all have horror stories about agency land, but we also have really good stories about agency land. I want to shift the analogy for a second.
Okay.
You know, this guy named Jerry Seinfeld, he had a show about nothing. Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld.
No,
Seinfeld? Yeah, you nod your head.
yeah.
Okay, all right. So Jerry Seinfeld was one of the highest paid comedians of all time. And then he ended his show. And what did he do? He went back to doing the same thing he's always done, not writing a show, but doing stand up. I want to know why I talk to recruiters week in and week out who are afraid to go from being a corporate recruiter back to agency land. And I don't have an answer for that. Like, I know that I play as a corporate recruiter today. I know that I could jump back into an agency role tomorrow. I realize that in agency land, you've got to play a 360 recruiter where you've got a client that you've got to keep happy. Newsflash. In corporate recruiting, you cannot run from your client. If you run from your client, you quit your job or you get fired. Okay. Like you are on the horn with them. You are showing them how to close out requisitions in Workday. Like you are doing that work. But besides the fact that like as a corporate recruiter that I have to work with, um, that I have to work with immigration to get H-1B visas taken care of and things of that nature, or that I have a much closer relationship with the comp team. I don't understand why people are afraid to go back to agency recruiting. I know it's feast or famine, you eat what you kill, but running out of money at the end of a month versus making a betting on yourself, I don't understand where that lack of confidence is. And I think that's the number one thing that people have kind of been kicked in the teeth about this year in 2023. Sorry to go on a dour, sour note.
No, I think that's important just because like I mean, we've all seen the posts of people like, hey, we're running out of money. Savings is gone. 401k is being tapped. Like, I'm going to be homeless. And it's just, it's heartbreaking. You definitely, like, I typically don't have recruiting openings. So there's nothing that much I could do outside of like giving advice. And I know they're flooded with advice, but you know, what are this is going to be a multifaceted question just because this is interesting. I remember getting laid off. I remember like trying to open up some opportunities for myself, you know, started picking up clients. I feel like, is it just me, but are a lot of these people that have been impacted, are they only just applying for jobs? Are they not doing other things out there?
They're not doing the work that recruiters are supposed to do, which is network with people, right? You know, as a recruiter, Benjamin, how many times have you told somebody, reach out, like, hey, I can't help you with this role, but reach out to somebody who works at Adobe and ask them for an informational interview. You might have a friend that's there. It's like we've forgotten how to network. We've forgotten how to ask, what can I do to solve your problem today that you can help me solve my problem tomorrow? We've become, and and I'm not bashing LinkedIn, but we've become so reliant on the network and the InMail that we just think sending it is going to solve a problem. It's not, right? Like we've got to find a way to ask people what is their problem and how can we solve it so that we can create that serendipitous networking opportunity. And that question you're asking, isn't to another recruiter, to a hiring manager. Notice that you just got $4.5 million in VC funding. How are you going to spend that is a shitty question to ask. A better question to ask is, you just got $4.5 million in funding. That's great. How are you going to grow your people? What challenges can you now overcome that you previously weren't able to? Right? Like asking those types of questions and really kind of just getting in there and swinging, that's it.
I know like one of the crazy things that I did when I was looking for a job, I saw, I figured out who the recruiting manager was, recruiting director, saw some of the openings that they did. I went out and built out I think it was like 20 to 30 like people, a list on an Excel spreadsheet, 20 to 30 people per job with their contact information and why I thought they would be a good fit for that opportunity. And I actually sent that to the hiring manager, who I thought was a hiring manager, and also the recruiting director. I was like, hey, I saw that you guys have this opportunity. I know you guys are interviewing. Love to chat with you about it. Like, here's some of the work that I've done.
Yeah, but you've also got now here I come back and I say, you've got these career coaches that say, don't do free work for a job, right? It's not free work. It's showing who you are and what it is that you can do and the generation that you can bridge, right? Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, I don't want to seem like I'm disgruntled or that I'm upset with people that they're asking me for help. But like one example I give and is uh hey Benjamin, have you been to ycombinator.com?
I have.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So ycombinator.com is a startup incubator,
Mhm.
but they have a tab for jobs. And if you click on the jobs, it's like it used to be on LinkedIn, is it shows you the founder of the company's LinkedIn profile and the job that's there. Don't click on apply, click on the job and it'll show you the job and the hiring manager for the role. Why not reach out to them directly and say, hey, notice that you're a Y Combinator funded organization. I love startups. I want to build something. That could be a venue or a point for a lot of people who are looking for their next startup incubator or startup role to build or to grow or to go from being that individual contributor to being that contributor who is the director of recruiting that makes those decisions and navigates that. Or if you're doing business development, you say, hey, Mr. $4.5 million funded company, you may not have the budget to hire somebody as a full-time recruiter, but for 20 to 30%, I can find you the person that you're looking for. How can we work together? How can I help you solve this problem so you don't burn through more of your capital?
So wait, so one of the things you're recommending is like almost like being a fractional talent acquisition professional for these companies?
You could absolutely, that is a great, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, fractional talent acquisition, I look at it and say, there's some great people out there that spend 20 hours a week with one startup, 20 hours a week with another startup. They make it into a 40-hour a week job. Sometimes they have it where they're paid a retainer to be that recruiter and that they're paid on each of the roles. There are a lot of different ways to splice it, and there are a lot of different business models to put together with fractional recruiting.
And, I just, I love that you've kind of like mentioned that because like that's some of the advice that I've given to some people that just aren't running into, or they're not running into those open opportunities. You hop online and you see an open role and there's like 9,000 applications in 24 hours. So like those are different ways to skin a cat or get paid in recruiting. Um, but I know like before we went online, you were also talking about like finding those like quiet opportunities or opportunities that haven't been posted yet. How do people do that?
Okay. So I think that what we can do is that you can look at press releases. Press releases contain contact information with companies talking about that they're making move. Like in Georgia, Hyundai has invested a lot of money in moving production for Kia and Hyundai to Georgia. There are going to be a lot of opportunities for corporate recruiting. There are going to be a lot of opportunities for agency recruiting. There are going to be a lot of opportunities for RPO recruiting. Why don't you set a Google alert for press releases about plant expansions and then go to the press release and reach out to the person listed in the press release and say, I'm looking for more information about this Hyundai plant that's being built in Roswell, Georgia. I don't know where it's being built in Georgia. I drove by it on the way to the beach. Um, it's being built off the coast of Savannah. Can you provide me with some more information? Right? What kind of information are you looking for? Who are the contractors? Right? Like, okay, so maybe you staff light and heavy industrial. Great. Now you've got a list of people that you can call that they've got a contract and they're going to need people to build a factory. Alternatively, maybe they're looking for people to be HRBPs or to be recruiters for the company. You've got an outlet there. There are a lot of different ways to skin this cat. And I think that press releases are something that people overlook.
Let me pause right there. You're saying as a
Uh-oh.
you're saying as a recruiter, I need to be actively out there doing things and not just waiting for applications.
No, well, I mean, like, Ben, as with, like, you've heard me talk about this before, I'm sure, is that I think that great recruiters have three attributes: that they are curious, they're empathetic, and they are tenacious. Sometimes we forget about being tenacious. We can't forget about being tenacious, right? We can be curious. We can ask lots of questions. We can watch YouTube clips. We can look at press releases. We can ask who's doing the hiring. Okay, got that. Empathetic. We can be empathetic to our candidates and say, understand the circumstances that you're in today. What would be an ideal situation for you to go to next? Lou Adler asked the question in his trainings. He says, how do you position an opportunity in front of a candidate and say, if I was going to share with you something that was just a little bit better, marginally better than where you are today, what would you want to be doing? Okay. It's a powerful question. And that's the empathy part. But we've forgotten the damn tenacity. Okay. Agency land told you or taught you that time kills all deals. Time kills all deals in all recruiting. Okay. Like, I've got people who are on offer today and I'm like, when is that offer letter going to come in? Because I need you to be on board. Not that I have an onboarding class, but that I want this to be successful for you. I want you to get everything that you need. I want things to be smooth and there to be a great transition, right? We've forgotten about tenacity. Like everybody's all obsessed with, okay, I'm beating up on in-mails today, right? Like that's going to be the title of this talk. Brian Fink hates in-mails, right? But like, why have we forgotten about picking up the phone, right? Like you and I met over DM, right? So like, that's totally different, right? Like that's a different personal level. If you're afraid to pick up the phone, are you afraid to WhatsApp somebody? Why aren't you making phone calls and inquiring about the future that benefits you directly? I don't get it. I don't understand why people are afraid of the phone suddenly.
It's, I I actually don't know. And yes, like being on the phone or mostly making those like calls, everything going to voicemail. But like, how do you not build a relationship through just an email or just through an email? It's, or how, I hate to say this, like, how do you find out what is really driving a candidate to make a change through
Oh,
an email?
absolutely. 100, 100. You can't find it out over email. But what you can say is you can send them an email and say, look, okay, so one of my favorite emails that I send to candidates is I say, look, I work for McAfee. I'm not interested in you doing a specific job. I'm interested in what you want to do next. How can I help you find the vehicle that takes you there next? Question mark. I will very rarely mention the job or give 3 friggin' bullet points about what the job is. Okay. Um, or I say, I'm working on a confidential search. I can't go into details. Please let me know. I then pick up the phone, call the person and say, I'm working on a confidential search. I sent you an email about it. Please let me know when you have time to reconnect. That's it. If it sounds canned and rehearsed, it's because that's what I do.
And,
That's what I got.
and we got to get back to that. I think that's also what's going to be separating good recruiters from the average recruiters too.
Yeah, that, and I also think literacy separates good recruiters from bad recruiters. Don't just be a keyword monkey. Look and actually understand the context that I am not a business analyst. Do not send me another message for being a business analyst.
What does it even say business analyst on your LinkedIn profile?
It does not say business analyst. It has a bunch of words about AI, which, is what I'm looking for right now.
Well, before we jump over to the quickfire section, is there anything else that you would love to share with the listeners?
Um, you know, I, I think I came off a little negative in this connotation. I'm usually a very optimistic guy. I do think things are going to get better as we move forward. However, you got to remember it's up to you to make them better, right? It's not, you can't rely on the market. You have to make your own market. You have to make your own decisions. That's what I got for you.
And for the listeners, Brian is an incredibly optimistic person, but like we're also talking about the realities of like of the situation, the environment, based on the experiences that we've had where we've been impacted before too.
Yeah. I mean, remember, earlier this year, or I should say late 2022, I was part of the Twitter onslaught, the night of a thousand dead birds. And, I recovered from it because I went out there and I spoke to people and said, hey, do you have anything? Give me a chance. I'll take contract. I'll take this. I'll take that. Um, I was pretty close to actually hanging up my own shingle, and two people called and said, "We want you." And then I had to make a decision between them. So yeah, go out there and be your own advocate.
And before we move on, I think a lot of things and Brian, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think a lot of recruiters don't understand the value that they personally bring to the table and to the company.
100, you have to understand, you have to understand that. You have to understand the bottom line of the organization. I think a lot of recruiters don't know how a company makes money. If you can show what value you bring to help a company make more money, that's powerful. That's really, really powerful.
Oh, awesome.
Don't be a cost center. Don't be a cost center. Be a revenue generator, right? That's why I think the recruiting belongs under the CRO. So that's,
Somebody else gets that. I love that. Recruiting doesn't belong underneath HR. So, quick
yeah,
fire questions. What advice would you give to a brand new recruiter that's just getting started in the industry in 2023?
do one more. My dad always told me that you should always make one extra phone call. You should send one extra email, that you should send one extra postcard. Yes, I send postcards to candidates. They say, "I wish you were here." And it has a logo of the company that I'm working for at the time. Always send one more. If you think if 50 was good, do 51.
Perfect advice. And one, postcards are amazing. And there's technology that can like write it for you with a pen, a robot with a pen.
Yep,
I can't read my
absolutely.
handwriting. And two, is your dad Ed Milet?
It's my dad poo.
Ed Milet, he wrote the book, like One More.
Oh, no, 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 no. My dad is Steve Fink. Yeah. So no, but I like that. I like that. Do one more. I got it. Okay. Yeah.
Uh, what advice would you give to a recruiter that's been in the industry for 5 to 20 years that wants to continue having success?
Go back and look at what you did to be successful and think about how you can expand on that, right? Like, if it was, if it is sending 100 emails, think about how you can send 80 emails to get better results, right? Look at those KPIs, track your progress, track your success, make a daily journal. I mean, I've got I've got mine here. I put a journal together every day of every activity that I go through. And then I go back at the end of the day and I say, okay, this is what I did. This is what worked. This is what did not work. This is what I'm going to try to duplicate tomorrow.
That is phenomenal advice. How many, what percentage of recruiters do you think track their own stuff and metrics?
Oh man. Uh, there are like 1,000 people coming to RecFest. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Mm. Oh, just kind of curiosity. It's, you can only move what you track.
Right. Well, here's the thing is that no matter how technologically advanced the tracking systems become, I still find that everybody is using Excel spreadsheets to track everything. You can quantify things in an Excel spreadsheet. You can quantify the notes that you put, the time that you spend on the phone, how many candidates you put to the process. Excel spreadsheets are powerful. You can take a LinkedIn learning course. There's the silver lining for LinkedIn. A new sponsor is you got the opportunity to really dig into your numbers, and I don't play golf, but I play recruiting, and I look at it as an infinite game. So go there.
Has there been a book that's had a huge impact on your career?
Yes, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Um, yeah, I got a hold of it in 2014. I thought about quitting recruiting, and it really taught me and showed me that I should be going after those roles that are C-suite driven opportunities, because that was the only thing I hadn't touched. I don't know why I was afraid of it, but it really taught me to break through and to lean into that discomfort.
Awesome. What is your thoughts about the future of artificial intelligence in recruiting?
Man, I love this idea. I'm a big Star Wars junkie, so I think about the Jedi Fallen Order video game where the little robot sits on your Jedi's shoulder, um, and with telekinesis. So that robot helps you do things like jump further than you were supposed to jump, or illuminate things that you can't see. That's what I think AI is going to do. It's going to illuminate things that we can't see. It's going to help us with pattern recognition. and it's going to take us from good to great. I'm very excited about it. Like,
And
I'm excited that candidates are going to use it to thwart us to try to get past decision makers, right? And it's just going to like create this arms race. I'm very excited about that.
do you have a favorite rec tech tool that you're enjoying at the moment?
For my technical recruiters out there, I love Octo HR. It's free. You can download it and put it in Chrome. And what it does is when you're on a GitHub profile, it will go through and find the email address and tell you what the person is good at. Um, Benjamin, you know my thing. Free is for me. It's my favorite 4-letter word that begins with an F. Get your mind out of the gutter. Second favorite word is fake. But the reality is I love that tool. And I also, if you're not going to pick up the book, which I want you to pick up the book, there's a tool it's called Glossary Tech that, can run on LinkedIn profiles, resumes, and the like. And it'll tell you what words mean in context, different predominantly technical terms. So those are two tools that I really like.
What is what do you think has been a big impact on your own personal success?
Um, I think I've been surrounded, like, geographically speaking, I couldn't have asked for a better city to be in. Like, I have tremendous mentors. I have people like Barbara Marks that index me on empathy for candidates. I have Shally, who is literally right down the road, who indexes me on technology and tools. I have Steve Rath, who has been an excellent mentor. I have all these people that live within 15 minutes of me. I have Jason Singer, who perpetually gets me to ask better questions about candidates. So I think my superpower is the community, like where I was geographically located, and how they elevated me to another level.
So, and this is actually my favorite question. If you can go back to the very beginning of your career, the ups, the downs, everything that you've learned, what advice would you give yourself?
And not, you know, that that second year that I was a recruiter, don't do that second year. It's the second year, all I was focused on was billing. I was not focused on my clients. I was not focused on my candidates and making sure that they were at the center of everything that I do. And I would give myself the advice, don't look at the paycheck. The paycheck is going to happen. Put your candidates and your clients at the center of everything that you do, make them your first customer, and everything will turn out for the best. Because the second year, all I wanted to do was break $200,000. That was all that I wanted. Right. And, that recipe for success, just looking at that number was not getting me where I needed to go.
It is kind of funny in this career, the second like you start focusing on the money and the number, it's like candidates and clients just feel that through the phone.
They do. They do. And the thing is like, if you want to be successful at this business, I said 3 things: curiosity. You got to find out what motivates your candidate. You got to find out what motivates your client. You got to find out what motivates your customer. Empathy. You've got to feel that for them and make sure that you are a team player that's bringing them, both the company up and the candidate up. And tenacity, you can't give up. You got to give one more. That's it.
Awesome. Well, Brian, this has been a phenomenal podcast. Before I let you go, is there anything else you'd love to share with the listeners?
You know what, man? Hell yeah. Just give it your all, right? Like, go out there. If this is your first time turning into one of Benjamin's podcasts, you need to go back and you need to listen to what Ernie has to say. You need to go back and listen to DSP. You need to be part of DSP's group on LinkedIn. Don't spam it. Don't spam it, damn it. Yeah. But like, um, give to the community and the community will give back to you. That's what I got.
Phenomenal. Well, Brian, I'm excited that I got to host you. You've been an incredible influence on the entire community. And it's been awesome to share your story. And for the listeners, I'll have a link to Brian's book in the show notes. So all you have to do is hop on, look down the show notes, and you'll be able to pick up a copy of Brian's book. So for the listeners, until next time, guys, let's keep crushing it.